Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode 11. Of course, last time out, we finally got our two female drivers in place, and we are about to wrap up our current season. We have 2 races left, and then we're going to navigate that off season and see what we can do to rapidly develop the car in preparation for next season, because we're going to need to be more competitive with the car, and of course, we're going to need to see some development with the 2 drivers, that combination, to hopefully cover that 40-second gap or so, which that's a lot. That is a lot, but that's over the course of a race. A couple tenths a lap, though, is not going to make that difference, right? That's going to end up covering 15 seconds. We need a lot more than that. So it's going to take a bit of work to get competitive, and that is not necessarily about being the best team. That is a project that is a long ways off from happening. It's about just being competitive at the back of the grid. Now, the reason to be competitive at the back of the grid, other than just like having something to do, yay, we beat somebody. It's about board confidence, about keeping our job. That is going to be the ultimate challenge here. Winning a Constructors' Championship would be a matter of time. Keeping our job in the first place is probably the biggest task of all. And that task has been made more difficult here and now. I should have been all set for this season, except I've encountered a bug that has created a bit of a setback. Heading into our last race weekend, Sao Paulo, Brazil, the board members asked about coming. And when you get these events, it's consider it a wager. You have a standard race weekend evaluation done by the board every weekend. They test how you do compared to everybody else. Some weeks you're going to be up, some weeks you're going to be down. And that, over the course of the season, gives you that little bit of a roller coaster that will eventually be what your overall board review is. Some of that also has to do with what is your constructor standing position. Now, we're P9 when they expect P8. So that part's not going terribly well. But we did have a very high evaluation, and it was still high. And then this happened. So the board asked to come, and we could have had +3 reaction or a -2 reaction. I knew we were going to struggle to finish, so I denied. Deny. Right there. Deny. But they came anyway, and we have a reduced confidence. And because of that reduced confidence, it has suddenly dropped to medium. And when we are below target, that combination, now instead of being high and a little bit off target going, we'll be fine, now it's medium and below target. Now I worry a little. There's only 2 races, and we're not going to fare well in either of those races unless one of the teams has 2 cars DNF, and that'll place us above them. But even then, that's still only 9th. We need to finish 8th. So you need 2 teams, 2 sets of drivers DNFing or having major damage. Major, right? Minor damage, they still finish ahead of us. It's just a smaller gap. That is a massive ask. Absolutely massive ask now. Now, it's still medium. There's still a fairly good chance, probably better than 50% chance, that this combined with this will not equal this. But I'm more nervous now, and it's because of a bug. That shouldn't have happened. We denied the wager, but we took the punishment anyway. Now, we were just at very high 2 race weekends ago. Last weekend we were at high. It's not going to suddenly drop to medium just because we finished 10th last race weekend. That's not how that one works. It's not going to drop that rapidly. It takes many races to go from one scale, one level to a different level. And we just transitioned. So we were nowhere near medium board confidence. But a multiple negative on a wager could have done that. So that's the only way I could see that happened. That had to be some sort of bug that triggered there. We said no. Game decided to make it a yes anyway. Risky move with the end of the season coming. You need to have some extra money set aside in preparation for a new season. I don't really want to do any more facility upgrades this season just to have that extra money in place when and where we need it. But our wind tunnel has dropped in condition, which means it's less effective as it is. What it costs to refurbish and the time it takes to refurbish versus just doing the upgrade and seeing things be better and more effective in terms of the car upgrade, it's something we need. It's something we need. So I'm taking a bit of a risk here, but we are going to spend the 10 million. That, by the way, will place us at level 2 across the board in the car development facilities, which is problematic when we want to have a competitive car. But could be worse, could be all ones.
Welcome to the Silver State of Nevada for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The track here is a high-speed street circuit that takes in the lights and the sights of this spectacular Sin City. Drivers will take on over a mile of the Las Vegas Strip, racing flat out past all the glamour and glitz it has to offer. Formula One's highest speed street circuit promises incredible action up and down the Las Vegas Strip. Racing at night means track temperatures will be lower, so data from free practice 2 could be crucial to managing both qualifying and the Grand Prix.
Last 2 races, we know we're going to be slow. I've already mentioned that I'm intent on saving as much money as possible and not having to dump it into parts here late in the season. So if I have like one more side pod destroyed, we're going to be down to an old version. So a couple of those car parts we're going to be down to kind of what's left, the leftovers, the backups. But car parts damaged wise, this is what we have: an engine at 42% and ERS at 43%. Got an okay gearbox for Florsch. For Gotti, it's 34%, 23%. It's really low. Plus the gearbox, that ERS in particular is going to be a problem. It's 2 races. We're off the pace anyway. Suck it up. Deal with it. As for the car setup, neither one put together anything. It was 44 and 47% respectively. My changes, they didn't have much range. This is partly down to affinity with crew chiefs. It's kind of a good thing that we're getting them that head start in the team now instead of bringing them in to start next season, as we're going to have issues then. Getting them a little bit of time together now, getting them those months, giving them that off season together should have an impact on how well things come together next season. But right now, car setup is a problem, which means they're not getting bonuses. Their driver ratings are bad enough already without those bonuses, which, by the way, that's what those bonuses are for. They improve driver ratings. So a car setup does absolutely nothing to the pace of the car itself, at least to my understanding of how this game works. And I'm sure many of you will disagree with me on this, and maybe somebody does know more than me, but to my understanding, the car setup does not impact the actual pace of the car. It's about comfort for the driver. And the comfort for the driver piece, what it translates to in the game, is you get bonuses. And this year it's variable, the driver confidence. Here is that list of bonuses, by the way. So accuracy, braking, cornering, overtaking, defending are the 5 attributes. And for Gotti, you see she's actually carrying -1s. It also comes with that chance of incident. So that combination of factors. The car setup contributes to the driver confidence. The driver confidence impacts their attributes, and their attributes combined with the base pace of the car will determine how fast they go around and how likely they are to have incidents, how well they can overtake, how well they defend against other drivers, how well they handle variable conditions when it starts to rain or the amount of water on track increases, etc., etc. As we prepare for the race, now that we've gone through qualifying, one thing has changed. What changed was our base car setup was at 44 and 40%. I tweaked it. I didn't have very good feedback, so I could only make so many adjustments without going crazy, and the net result ended up being a 60% and a 78%. Not good. Not very good for bonuses. But what it did do was it did improve their driver confidence a bit. And instead of now carrying negatives, at least they are essentially neutral. We got a +1 to cornering for Florsch. Gotti has a +1 to braking and a +1 to cornering. Again, it makes them a little bit better. So I could, in theory, get in there, spend the time, give them better bonuses. But what is a 46 accuracy going to do for Gotti? Is she going to keep up with Alfa Romeo on a 46 accuracy? Absolutely not. Right now, it makes more sense to leave out practice, leave out qualifying where we know we're slow, we know we're off the pace anyway, leave out those extra bonuses for the long-term benefit of squeezing 2 or 3 races into an episode as opposed to single race weekends. The pace of the season right now for the long game makes more sense than the minor benefit of really getting that deep dive. And that's the only reason why I'm skipping practice, why I'm skipping qualifying at this point in time, is more races means getting us to a competitive state. Nobody wants to see us fight tooth and nail for 40 seconds off the pace to turn that into 37 seconds off the pace, right? Those 3 seconds gained could be the difference between first and second if you are just off the pace of the top team. It could be the difference between 18th instead of 19th if you're just off the pace. Right now we are astronomically off the pace, and therefore rushing through the season makes much more sense. Even though we do have our drivers in place now, it still makes sense, and for next season as well, as we're going to try to cover that gap, but seeing that gap shrink is going to be more important as a long-term thing than a short-term thing.
We're all ready to go in Las Vegas. And it's lights out, and away we go.
All right, we are racing, and it's Vegas. This is our first time here, and there's a big lockup on the first corner. Somebody had an issue. It looks like everybody has kind of made it out of it okay, other than it's very much backed up our end. It's Stroll with that lockup. Let's see what's happened here. It's entering turn number 1. He's on the outside. There is a runoff area out there, so he's really lucked out on that one. He's going to have to rejoin from last place. Woo, we're up a spot. We know he's going to overtake us soon enough, though, in the Aston Martin, which is obviously the 3rd quickest car. As we begin lap number 2, we're going to jump into an onboard here with Sophia Florsch, who still sits in P18. As we ride on board, here's what I'm interested in this race. I want to get to know this track. I want to get to know the layout and what's going on here. This is my first time seeing it. I've seen Google Maps and overhead. I definitely was interested. There was initially some backlash of, F1 Vegas, 3 races in the US. There's 3 races in the US, and there's 12 in Europe. Roughly same size, roughly similar populations. I get that different countries and absolutely deserve, but yeah, the US is absolutely massive and is a big F1 market now. Not just case in point, not new, not Drive to Survive, but still. Backstretch here. This is down the strip. And it's a long one there. It's absolutely a long one. Okay, as we're finishing up this second lap, though, let's go ahead and start knocking this thing down into setting ourselves up for the long run. One stopper, medium to hard. Some are probably going to be going soft to hard, but I know that my 2 drivers just aren't that great when it comes to their pace, and that is 2 laps in the book. So that was a lap around Vegas. Yes, there are a couple of long straights here. This little canal section is one that I thought would be pretty interesting. But is it though? What did we get out of this section? Not a whole lot. And there is Stroll making his way through. So we're down to P19, down to P20. But not horribly off the pace. I mean, we're about 2.5 seconds behind Bottas right now. That's, of course, the one we want to watch out for because we know Stroll's going to go through and get past those guys as well. And our race is very much with them. They, meanwhile, are hanging on, keeping up with Magnussen for the time being. Let's see, who opted for what? Stroll on the softs. That's helping him get back through, but that's very much going to hurt his race as he'll have expended a bit of tire life there. Ocon's not doing great in that department. Only 4 cars on the softs. So everyone's going with the medium to hard. One stopper here. Wide track. Plenty of room for overtaking. Not terribly technical. This is very much an acceleration and high speed track for the most part. I don't know if it's going to be horribly boring, especially as there's potential for overtakes, but as it's not terribly technical, pace is going to be a big factor here, I can tell. By the way, we are still only 7 seconds down after lap 20, so as they settled down a bit, they pulled away from us early on, but as they settled down and as they probably lost contact with the cars ahead and weren't benefiting from the DRS, they stopped pulling away from us. They've only gained 1 second in the last 15 laps. That is progress. That is absolute progress. We are losing less than 1/10 of a second per lap right now. Comparatively, I'm excited by that. Heading down pit road for the first time, so it's on the inside of the track, which obviously will help with the time loss. 2.364 for Florsch. Gotti double stacking. There was a 9-second gap between them, so I felt that was enough. 2.332. It was no problems, either one. They do well enough with that. And we are back out on track for our final stint. You can see, though, the tire wear, both of them just a little bit off from what's expected, and that's why I went for the medium to hard instead of the other way around. But they hang in there, they make it, they do okay. It does look like we're going to have to lift and coast a little bit at some point here. Fuel recovery is going okay as a project, but it's far from where it needs to be, and we are at the halfway stage of this race. Now, we have not been lapped yet. Those blue flags are going to absolutely impact things. You could also see Alfa Romeo is way off the pace of everybody else. It's just really good to see that Zhou is 20 seconds down on Magnussen. Florsch is only 7 seconds down on the Alfa Romeos. So this is fantastic for us. This is the first time we've seen this. We saw it in one of those sprint races where we stayed relatively close and were competitive for the first time ever. But here, this is actual noticeable progress, that our pace is not significantly far off the other back-end team. Haas maybe seems to be lacking top speed, which I suppose that's another thing to worry about, though. What's this track? One absurdly long straight, one medium length straight, and one shortish straight. 3 long straights. Not a lot of tight corners, so it's all medium or high speed downforce corners other than one little chicane at the edge. This is that canal area, by the way. So the canal kind of feeds like right through here. That's the Vegas Strip up there. Which hotel's which? I don't know. MGM Grand's one of these. As Gotti is going to start to fall into the blue flag trap here soon, that's going to hurt Gotti's position and pace. But on lap 29 now, we are starting to see them on the fresh compound pull away a little bit. Maybe going a little harder, but we're at 10 seconds and 12 seconds behind respectively. Again, we are closer to them than they are to the next team ahead of them. That's progress. problem being that we are a team that has decent raw pace. We just don't have downforce. So this is a track where I think we're going to fare a little bit better than some of the other tracks. So being closer to them isn't necessarily that we've made that much progress. I think it's a bit track specific as Gotti begins the blue flag running here on lap 31. And again, the fuel an issue. I think Gotti, now that we are down, you actually don't even need as much because you're a lap down, right? So as you're suffering through, that's going to fall off a bit and you're not going to use as much. Before getting lapped here, and that is going to definitely start to alter things. Just 12 seconds down for Flourish with 15 laps to go. Again, she's only lost 2 more seconds. So as they got up to speed, those first few laps, they were definitely quicker on that first 3-4 out laps and stretched a 7-second lead into a 10-second lead. But and until we just gave up a bunch of track position, getting blue flagged, opening that up, it had only from there opened a further 2 seconds over 10 laps. So we're not as quick on the hard compound as we were. And yes, not happy with fuel. I think it's time we well, here's the thing, what's 1 lap? I know it's not 3.2. I do think it's about 2. So we're about 1 kilogram below where we need to be, I think, to finish this successfully. I think I'm probably in the safe zone now on the fuel with 4 laps to go here. But we're far enough down and we've already tested the waters and seen where we can perform. Weak components, we were only losing 2/10 per lap. So this was a good track for us. Things were going pretty well. We're not that far off pace that we need to be, but we're going to continue to conserve. And you can see while we are beginning the final lap, or have just over a lap to go, I think we're okay on the fuel, even though it says we are negative. I don't think we're going to run the risk of running out because it's the final lap. Perez takes the win ahead of Verstappen, held him off that whole time. Verstappen never got around him. Leclerc and Sainz, they'd been hovering around 3 to 5 seconds behind. They end up finishing at 3.7 with Sainz just behind Leclerc. Alonso, then Russell. It'll be Stroll recovering all the way to P7 ahead of Ocon and Hamilton. And then De Vries wraps up the point. So AlphaTauri scoring another point here late in the season. They definitely brought that car along. But Bottas, Zhou do end up getting lapped in the end. But definitely didn't suffer as many blue flags as we did. There was a number of cars there that we ended up having to make way for in the middle pack that added to that gap. But you can see how we finished fine on the fuel. Bad news, folks. The game, and especially since modding the database, but I've done both. I've tried to go back to my original save, which I kept, replay some races to at least get to where we're at, regardless of which version I'm going for, whether it's the base game with 0 modifications or whether it's just a modified save itself. I have not touched the game components at all, but for some reason the game is just a bit on the unplayable side right now. Lots of problems, lots of crashes, and I'm continually losing many hours of the day. So at least temporarily, hopefully just very short term, as in a week and a half, I am going to be taking a short hiatus on this series at this point in time, with us at the conclusion of the first season. So how it's going to roll back in will depend on what's happening regarding updates, regarding what I can get fixed, and what happens in terms of also the fact that I'm just a little bit busy and preoccupied IRL right now. It's my 12-year anniversary with my wife this weekend. We're going to be out of the country for a few days, actually, just not exactly far away, just Victoria, British Columbia. But either way, between the time constraints, the frustration of just constant crashing with this game, I'm gonna give it just a short little break, okay? It will be back either with a restart into a new season or something to get it going again. But don't worry, it will be back soon enough. But that is gonna have to do it for this episode, and in theory, most likely this season. There was only one race left that things are broken right in the middle of, and I cannot get it going. I've spent half a day. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.